I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Niv-to-Light in the Timeless format. Now Niv-to-Light is a popular strategy in the Pioneer format, centered around the card Niv-Mizzet Reborn, and decided to port it into Timeless. And so it's just a massive dragon that when it enters, you look at the top 10 cards, and for each color pair, you can put one of those cards into your hand. So potential huge draw engine right here. And something that plays really nicely with Niv-Mizzet is Bring to Light. So not only can Niv-Mizzet pick this up as your blue-green card, but Bring to Light, with its Converge ability, can pull a Niv-Mizzet out of your deck, and as well as other silver bullets you might have. So they just work really nicely together. And so what we have here is basically like a 5-color control deck. And so, you know, like our blue-white slots occupied by Supreme Verdict, red-white is with Phlage, blue-black is with Drown in the Loch. And as you can see, most of the strong multicolor cards cost more than 1 mana. So this makes this a very natural Chalice of the Void deck, which we can just lock people out with. Not to mention, since we have so many ways to recoup card advantage, Chrome Mox is exceptionally strong here. We can just load up on cards and turbo stuff out, even turn 1 Chalice people, so let's grind them out. This hand looks pretty great. You even have the one of Waterlogged Teachings I have, which is basically just in there to be tucked under Chrome Moxes. Alright, blue-white tap land from the opponent. In case the opponent has hand disruption, I'm going to play the Mox out, even though we can't use it yet, but should hopefully set up a turn 2 Oko, which should be pretty strong. So we have to see if any other colors show up on the other side of the battlefield. Alright, tapped Castle Vantress, which means, like, barring like a Spell Pierce, like shields are down for an Oko. So you have to be very mindful of your colors in this deck. There's just, you know, you have a couple of Triomes, ton of Shocklands just to try and make it all work. But we got Oko pretty covered, and we're just going to dump a food token. Now, it appears that we're playing blue-white control, and sneaking an Oko through their defenses is amazing, because it's going to be able to create Elks every other turn that they're just going to have to keep having to deal with. And blue-white doesn't always have as many answers to Planeswalkers. Like, we'll have to see if they're running, like, Leyline Binding. So, going to go ahead and animate the food token, just to try and see if we can prompt any responses from them. So we go ahead and elk our food token, and waiting for them to pass priority. Then we have to think about what do we do after this. So we're just going to crash in, see if we can deal some damage. The opponent has something in hand they're at least thinking about. Okay, so they actually path our elk, and they might have been examining our mana base. So we have one other basic, so that's actually way better for us than a swords, so we'll happily take that extra land. In an attempt to try and overload their counters, I'm just going to hit them with Phlage right here. So it looks like the opponent is responding to it. Now it is risky, like possibly loading up a mana drain for them, which is what's happening here, but I do want to like run them out of answers at some point, and Phlage requires multiple answers if it's not swordsed. So unfortunately we set them up for a very early Teferi Hero Dominaria, and alright, so they're gonna have 4 untapped mana on our turn, which is not ideal, and our we have to start the creature making process over again. So it's gonna be like, you know, we could always animate Chrome Mox. This is me trying to figure, you know, I want to try and see if I can kill Teferi right now. So I'm going to attempt to Molten Collapse right here. And by some miracle, they let that happen. I thought for certain they'd have a counter there. So been, you know, checking the graveyard here and decide to alright, the opponent's going to end step Memory Deluge. Holding up Indatha Triome Cycling just to try and fill the graveyard for Phlage. Once again, just trying to keep the threats flowing. We just got to keep making them have answers over and over and over again. Just overtax what they have. And Oko is a great way to deal. Okay, so the opponent's just tapping out for Lorien Revealed, refilling their hand, and they're going to just pass to us. So once again, like I said, trying to load the graveyard to set up for Phlage. Unfortunately, neither of our basics help escape Phlage, so like we're still a little ways from an escape, but the shields are down, barring some crazy, you know, like Pact Negation or something like that. So we're going to try and sneak a Bring Delight through their defenses. And I spent a second here looking for Minsc. I'm like, what, where is it? How come it's not showing up? Well, you can't grab a Planeswalker with Bring Delight. So ultimately grab Niv-Mizzet Reborn, which honestly may be the better call anyway, and then we happen to find Minsc in hand, so that's excellent. I have to choose which of the red-green cards, and it's obviously Minsc in this match. They have a million ways to answer creatures, far fewer answers to Planeswalkers, and Minsc is a particularly troublesome one for control decks because it just keeps making the creature automatically and can just shell out tons of damage. So going to animate the food and crash in. And now that we've filled our hand, I'm going to play out the Tri-land and want to just make sure our colors are all set up. So opponent has a lot to deal with right now. Oko and 2 creatures of ours. So we'll have to see. I mean, they did draw like a million cards. Alright, so opponent's going to slam a 1-ring. So they're going to get at least 1 turn fog. And that's something this deck doesn't have as a way to like brute force through a 1-ring. I'm not even sure if there's any like 2 color ways to do that, or if it's even worth it. So it is something that it is worth considering, though, having ways to fight through the 1-ring, considering how strong it is. So I have to decide what to tuck under Chrome Mox. I end up putting the Grinded Dust. Like, another candidate was Supreme Verdict, because Grinded Dust could possibly place some minus counters and kill some Snapcasters, you know, but I decided, you know, Supreme Verdict is a little more powerful, and it's not even clear they even have Snapcasters, so went ahead and put Grinded Dust. Now, the opponent knows we have an active counterspell up with Drawn on the Loch, and so they didn't want to pick the fight against Minsc, which is honestly excellent for us, because like I said, it's going to make their life really difficult. So double Planeswalkers and a bunch of creatures feels pretty nice. So we're just going to hold on to our Drown on the Loch, and the opponent's graveyard's pretty loaded, so we can basically counter like anything. Alright, they're going to bin Brainstorm. Which reminds me, we are a Chalice deck, so if any point we find a Chalice, stick it on 1, it's going to make their life way difficult. Like, it's going to shut down Swords, Path, Brainstorm. And if we were really bold, we could put a Chalice on 2, but that locks out a ton of our own spells, so... Alright, so there's a Supreme Verdict. Okay, so they're going to clean up the creatures. And let's see if they have any follow-ups with that. Gonna crack the fetch on end step. And see how many... So we still have a few shock lands in there. Once again, trying to be mindful of the colors. Want to make sure I get a land that can help escape Phlage. So getting a red source right there. And definitely not cracking our food token. Okay, so opponent actually has to discard, but they just dump a Memory Deluge in the graveyard, which has flashback anyway. So we're gonna make a new hamster, and as we make the new hamster, I'll go ahead and link a video from my own take on blue-white control. Quite a bit different than this one. Of course, you know, I'm running Chalice in it, so I'm gonna just keep the pressure by making the elk.
Surely you see the humor.
And so the reason I'm hesitant on Minsc activation, because we could always minus it to fling a creature, and like, but the thing is with you know, they could have a counterspell plus Swords up, and that would just, you know, so there's a Swords right there. That would ruin like any plan to try and get there, you know, kill them this turn with Phlage. So just trying to play it safe, though there is inherent risk of letting control keep drawing cards. But we have them like in a real bind right now, so we do get an elk hit in. And one thing to remember is that they do have a creature land over there, the Restless Anchorage, so I know like multiple points during this battle forgot that they had a creature land, so it's important to remember that they could have a surprise blocker. Alright, so the 1-ring, like, they've drawn so many cards, like I'm worried about them starting to chain 1-rings at this point. And just trying to be real patient. Alright, so there's another 1-ring on the stack. I'm trying to decide if it's worth it, but decide, you know, like, it just buys them another turn at this point. And the reason being so cautious with Phlage is I don't want to expose it to like a Swords or Path to Exile unnecessarily. So we're going to hold off for now. Grabbing Overgrown Tomb. seems like we're pretty well covered on Phlage mana. And the opponent discards a Spell Pierce, since we have so much mana. Makes sense. So it seems like this turn we should just dump some counters on the hamster. Now the question is, do we cast Bring to Light? Because once, like, we're gonna have to deal with their answers eventually, and the more we chew through, the more potent our Drown on the Loch's going to be. And so there's a few options, like, do we Bring to Light and Phlage? Like, we don't have quite enough mana to, like, escape Phlage and Bring to Light and Drown on the Loch. If we could do all that, like, and the opponent also has ring protection, so it seems best just to wait. Dig Through Time is bad in that it empties their graveyard and is probably going to help find them some answers. I think they still have too many cards in their graveyard. Yeah, so I'm checking right here just to make sure I'm always aware of how many cards in their graveyard, so know what Drown on the Loch can actually deal with. So the opponent did find another Supreme Verdict. We're going to let it happen. But this is the power of Minsc and Boo and Oko in these control matchups. They don't tend to have Planeswalker sweepers, you know? I think even stuff like, what's the energy raft called? And I'm forgetting right now, but even that I think doesn't hit Planeswalker. So we're going to make a new hamster, and we draw a Niv-Mizzet Reborn. Alright, so going to create another elk token. Once again, I'm always hesitant here because a post-combat Minsc and Boo minus could deal lethal to them. But I decided just to keep dumping counters on the hamster, like, just force them to have something here. Like, either to throw away their creature land or to spend, like, 2 removal spells. And, like, we do know they can activate the ring to put swords into hands. Like, that's already clear. So, that they're going to do that. But the ring picking up counters is possibly going to damage them. Alright, so they swords the smaller creature. So it means they probably have another answer for the hamster. Waiting, and surprising that the hamster hit them. But I guess it's because the hamster replaces itself, and so they're holding off. And once again, in the effort to try and tax their answers, I'm going to play a Niv-Mizzet because... Alright, so they do have a mana drain. Now that is risky because that's going to give them 5 free colorless mana to dump into like a Memory Deluge or Dig Through Time. But the opponent does fall to 1 life here. So they have a ton of mana, so we got to see if they can do anything. And the opponent drops or puts a Dream Trawler on the stack, which was an absolute menace during a Theros Beyond Death draft. And like, just an awesome old school control, not super old school control finisher, but I really love Dream Trawler. Just as awesome art, just like a really cool creature. So now they're about to get another round of ring protection. So this is where I decide to use Drown on the Loch. Like, I don't want to let them get out of it, and then unfortunately it sets them up for an Absorb, which gains them some more life, and they get the ring protection anyway. But we have, you know, bought ourselves another window right here. So Minsc and Boo is asking us about creating another hamster. And the reason that hesitation happened is the opponent actually set an upkeep stop right there, which I realize at this point. So they wanted our hamster choice to happen, and then they then they pathed it in response, because otherwise it could have outgrown the Dream Trawler and caused them some problems. So we're out of basics, so that's just a straight up removal spell. So we don't have a new hamster. And I was gonna like try and Bring to Light for an answer for Dream Trawler, and wait a second, I have Supreme Verdict in hand, so that's just a clean answer to Dream Trawler. So thankfully I didn't try to Bring to Light for something. I don't know if we even had anything that could deal with the Dream Trawler, because it's on-demand hexproof every time you discard a card. So, but it's another shields down moment from the opponent, and so it means we can play another Bring to Light. It seems pretty clear just to put another Niv-Mizzet into play. Once again, it deals lethal by itself, and it's going to refill our hand. So we're going to see how well we hit, and it is a good one. 6 hits. So no big deal, just 6 mana, 6/6, draw 6. I'm going to go ahead and just plus Minsc and Boo. Once again, the opponent has ring protection, so we can't fling Niv-Mizzet at them to kill them. So, and I want to stop the opponent's card draw train. If I'm counting correctly, they have actually one more copy of the One Ring in their deck. So I'm just going to Elk the Ring. We're not worried about our life total at all, and the opponent's going to get one last draw out of it. But I just want to like reduce their card flow, like just help them to try and stop them from chaining, you know, Supreme Verdicts and One Rings and stuff like that. All right, so here's Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Teferi super good, but does have a lot to deal with. Now, this is me cracking the fetch, hoping I have a black source so we can drown the Loch this. Unfortunately, so I don't have every shock land in here, and maybe the one I needed is already gone. So instead, I shock in another blue source so that we have Izzet Charm up. So could have forced 2 extra mana payment on Teferi. Decide just to hold it up still, but I don't. Maybe the 2 mana tax is worth it there with like the soft counter mode. So the opponent is tucking Minsc, which is the most problematic planeswalker for them, and they have just a super clean follow-up with Field of Ruin. Not only are we out of basics, so I can't. So Izzet Charm can dig 2 cards deep. We can't quite get there, and so this was a mistake by me by not floating red mana to Izzet Charm. Just still have Izzet Charm up, but we were out of basics. So the opponent ends up passing to us, and we are still looking pretty good. So I'm trying to think here, like, all right, so I could animate, and you know, the opponent has 3 mana up. We got to just figure out how to overtax them. So we have Phlage Escape, Phlage Hardcast, Oko Animation, and then, but our Molten Collapse is a clean answer for Teferi, but I'm sensing that this is the time to go for the kill. The opponent has very limited mana up, so I'm going to attempt to kill their creature and send multiple threats towards them. So we're going to animate one of our Chrome Moxes into an Elk. And as long as one creature hits, we can Phlage them most likely and then have Counterspell backup. And so that's the idea. So we're going to send both creatures at them and see if we finally have found the right window and the opponent packs it in. So that was an awesome battle against control. And we had some like fortunate times where they went shields down and we just slammed a Niv-Mizzet. So happily jump into the next game. This time we have double Chalice of the Void. Okay, against a red-black opponent. No companion, so it's unclear how potent Chalice will be against them. And this is like a pretty great keep. Like we have grind to take care of some small creatures and like bring delight for the longer game. Getting a little Chalice flooded, but happy to see at least one of them in hand. So with the Indatha Triome to play, going to get like just going to complete domain just to make sure we have our colors, and so not scared of any blue mana messing with us right now. So we're gonna just Chalice for 1. See if the opponent hits us with like a lightning bolt in response or something, and the opponent packs it in. So those are 2 of the types of games. You can have the super long grind fest against control, or you could slam turn to Chalice and make people just nope out of there. So that last hand just seemed really, the 7 card hand seemed way too susceptible to like hand disruption. So I went ahead and mulligan and like how this looks way better. And there's the hand disruption. So the opponent has, you know, some interesting choices. Like it doesn't seem like they'll take Phlage unless they have a creature they're trying to protect. All right, we draw a Minsc. So they go ahead and take our Izzet Charm. I'm going to play Polluted Delta just to try and set up as many colors as possible. And it is like an interesting puzzle, like trying to figure out the mana base for this deck. My opponent's going to slam Deathrite Shaman. And they're playing knowingly into Phlage. Like they know we have land number 3, so but I guess they're just trying to like draw the Phlage out of our hand to protect something else. But at the same time, Deathrite Shaman is like its own, you know, it's a baby planeswalker basically. So it's I respect it enough to Phlage it down right here. Now we will need either a land or a Chrome Mox to keep playing stuff because we're sort of flooded with a bunch of expensive things. So I'm going to Phlage down the Deathrite. And I'm thinking like this is actually like a scam deck or something, but then the opponent fires off a Brainstorm and I start like thinking, okay, this might be something else, actually. Alright, so Deathrite Shaman eats like the Lightning Helix from Phlage, and the opponent, you know, has that Brainstorm and end step. And opponent is just going to play land and pass. There's a Chrome Mox. Okay, so hopefully the opponent doesn't counter it. And it seems pretty clear to tuck a Niv-Mizzet under the Chrome Mox if it resolves. And we're going to stick a Niv-Mizzet in there because we have an extra one, and because that enables a Minsc and Boo right here. And I fully expect this is going to eat a counter spell, but once again, you have to make them have it. Worse is that it's a Spell Pierce and allows them to just... Anyway, so this opponent fetches... if you enjoy seeing these grindy 5-color control battles, please, you see a guard, approach the like button. So, opponent swiftly deals with our Planeswalker, brainstorms again, and we're going to need a land soon because the opponent is pulling ahead on mana, and that can be pretty bad. And the opponent has another Brainstorm. And this is me like, wait, is this like their third Brainstorm already? So that's me checking the graveyard. And we got to see what's going on. And it becomes clear the opponent's not on like Scam or something. This is more akin to like a control deck. So Territorial Kavu is pretty nice. We have full domain, and it can allow us to sort of, you know, it can fill up the graveyard for Phlage and help us dig for a land to slam Niv-Mizzet. It unfortunately gives them a removal target, and it's just going to eat a Fatal Push. And then Orcish Bowmasters comes into play. Now, the nice thing about this deck is that it does not care at all about Orcish Bowmasters. We have like no creatures that die to it, and we have very little card draw. Like only like actual card draw we have is like Izzet Charm and like Territorial Kavu attacks, you know. So we don't care about Bowmasters as much as like other sort of controlling decks, because our card advantage just sort of puts them into our hand, like if a Niv-Mizzet hits. So now doing a lot of graveyard checks, because as much as I don't want to, like, I don't really care about either of their creatures. I do care about filling up the graveyard and getting Phlage online. It is unfortunate that it's our Assassin's Trophy and not our like Abrupt Decay, because this is going to give the opponent more mana to play with. Yeah, so the opponent still has another basic to pull out. Well, we keep drawing some amazing stuff, but we don't have enough mana for our mana spell, so we're just going to slam Phlage once again, just trying to just run them out of answers. And this resolves, which makes me feel pretty good. Now, I think I got a little ambitious. I probably should just nuke the token, but I was like sort of going for the kill right here to really get their life total down. But the opponent has a Revolt enabled Fatal Push to take down Phlage. And we see that they're actually a Soul Tie deck. You know, obviously splash into green for probably Deathrite Shaman's full potential. So if you're interested in more Soul Tie, I'll link a video right here of my own take on Soul Tie. So Phlage is going to have to start the process over filling up the graveyard. We did draw a tap land right there. The opponent has an excellent play with Dig Through Time and like a super stocked graveyard. So they have 7 cards left in their graveyard. Always need to monitor it since we have Drawn on the Locks, just to make sure, sure we know what's going on. The opponent slams a Sheoldred. So we're going to eat some damage from Sheoldred. Okay, so the question is, do we slam Niv-Mizzet or Bring to Light? In the face of like a likely mana drain right here. So I decide, if Bring to Light resolves, we just get a Supreme Verdict and we reset the board. And then we can, I'd much rather that get countered and like have Niv-Mizzet land and draw us a bunch of cards. So that was the rationale there. Okay, so the opponent has old-fashioned counterspell to take it out. So Sheoldred's starting to bolster their life total. Not to mention they have a Castle Locthwain to like refuel. So they play Deathrite Shaman into Sauron's Ransom, which is like a Fact or Fiction variant, and I see this and I'm like, oh my gosh, 2 different counterspells. Now the thing is, our graveyard only has 2 cards in it, so Draw on the Loch won't counter Niv-Mizzet. So I'm trying to bait them into taking the Draw on the Loch pile here by making it look juicy, like, oh, Bowmasters and Draw on the Loch. I don't know if there's a better psychological way to order these, because it almost seems too good. The opponent has to be like, what's in the other pile then? So I don't know if I should have been sneakier. And they did sort of suss it out and take the pile didn't want them to take. So they have the counter spell ready for our Niv-Mizzet. It's looking incredibly bleak for us right here, like looking super dead. And then we just rip a Supreme Verdict off the top, which is incredible. Like exactly what we need. The counter spell can't deal with it. The opponent has to be so mad that we ripped that. And yeah, you could see the opponent acknowledging our nice draw right there. Now, it's not over yet because the opponent has Castle Lochthwain, which they are going to activate. And they have a decent amount of life to play with, so... Now, here's the problem, though, is that they still have the counterspell for our Niv-Mizzet. I'm doing some graveyard checking to see how close we are to Phlage. And just going to be patient here. Hoping to find something else to bait the counter. This is rough though, because they have a million options right here. So they're going to Snapcaster Dig Through Time, which is going to be really bad for us. It shrinks their graveyard and finds them some good stuff. So we're going to need something soon. The opponent slams an Oracle of the Alpha. So what that does is it shuffles a copy of each of the Power 9 in their deck, and why not throw another bunch of them in there for good measure. So Oracle of the Alpha is tricky because obviously it puts some super strong cards like Ancestral and Time Walk in there, even Time Twister, but it throws a bunch of blanks in all the Mox, at least in like the late game. And we get their shields down moment allows us to slam a Niv-Mizzet Reborn, and we're going to be able to have Drown the Loch up and Abrupt Decay. So just in these control battles, like you just gotta find, like, force them or wait till their shields are down and like slam either Bring to Light or Niv-Mizzet and like just out card them. All right, so the opponent drew one of the Mox in, and that's one of the risks of Oracle of the Alpha. There's a lot of upside, but there's risk as well. So they're resolving the first scry, which they scry to the bottom, and then they have another scry. And it's important to see here, because so they scry to the top because they have Castle Lochthwain, so they can put whatever card that is into their hand. So, and I like the boldness of the attack from the opponent. They're thinking they can crash through and, you know, basically chump attack us down. Unfortunately for them, we have another uncounterable spell, an Abrupt Decay, to kill an Oracle of the Alpha. They would have surely countered that just to push damage. So we end up not taking that much damage at all, and facing against a counter spell. So we, however, have our own counter spell. So I'm hoping whatever they have is not like a removal spell or a second counter spell. So going to crash in with Niv-Mizzet, put them to 3, and put a Bring to Light on the stack. We have so many goodies we can find. I mean, we can just grab a Phlage to finish them off. So, and the thing about the auto tapper, it's really nice. Like, it always pays full colors if you're able to. All right, so we're going to Drown the Loch, counter the counter spell, so that our Bring to Light safe resolves. I'm shocked to see the opponent not activating Castle Lochthwain yet. So here it is. So it's going to need to be something amazing right here. But remember, whatever card they kept on top was when they thought they were dealing so much more damage to us. So maybe it was like a Dig Through Time they kept on top. They didn't expect to be this, like, they expected us to be on the defensive. So just going to grab a Phlage with the Bring to Light and just end this. So once again, hoping it resolves. So barring a Stifle effect and the opponent falls to Phlage, and we're on to the next game. This hand does not have enough mana. It has the wrong colors also. Going to keep the double Chalice hand, and there's an argument for keeping both of them against a Lurrus deck that's likely to have hand disruption, but I also want Phlage, I also want Bring to Light, and I want the lands, so I decided to put one of them back. But double Chalice is something you often want to have. As we see right here, the opponent's Inquisition is obviously going to take our Chalice away. Chalice is extremely potent against Lurrus decks, so the opponent still mulls it over for due diligence, though. Alright, we're going to play our tap land. It does, anyway, I think we need all the mana at this point. The opponent has a Thoughtseize as the follow-up. So it turns out the second Chalice if we had kept it, would have still gotten discarded. And there's a Chrome Mox. Doesn't seem like... So here's what we could do. We could tuck Bring to Light under the Chrome Mox and Phlage the Dragon's Rage Channeler. It doesn't seem like it's worth it though, considering we can just Phlage next turn. I mean, I guess barring discard. But Amped Raptor's going to find a Ragavan and Channeler's going to crash in. There's a Minsc. Okay, so if we weren't under such huge pressure, I totally would slam Minsc. Gonna Phlage down the Ragavan. Ragavan's just way too problematic. It's gonna draw them cards off our deck, make treasures. That is definitely the scariest card. Holding on to Chrome Mox just till we have some more information, but it is risky in the face of like a discard deck, you know, losing a possible mana source. So if we draw land and can like Chrome Mox away Minsc and slam Bring to Light, then we'll be feeling a lot better. So that's why I'm holding on to it for the upside. Now that was an unfortunate Surveil because that got them to Delirium, so we're taking extra damage. Not to mention FOMO is set up to like deal a ton of damage to us next turn, and we did not find a land. A land right there we could have Bring to Light for Supreme Verdict. And anyway, so would have been nice if we could have let Phlage take over the game later on. So instead going to power out a Minsc. And once again, tucking the Niv under the Chrome Mox just so we have, so we can pull out a Supreme Verdict with Bring to Light. So our hamster's going to eat the dust, bite the dust with the Fatal Push. Was really hoping to be able to block. And opponent's just setting up their attacks. And it's going to be a ton of damage despite Minsc soaking up some because FOMO is going to allow the Dragon's Rage Channeler to attack again. So they're not only killing Minsc, but they're dealing 6 to our face. And once again, if we can just find a land, we could... And then they slam another FOMO. Basically, if we can find a land here, we're still just fine. So not a land, but it's still reasonable. It's a tough call. I decided to take down the Channeler. It gives them the Surveils, and like it's the most potent thing to untap with the FOMOs and their little like extra combat patterns. We're still going to take a ton of damage right here from the FOMOs untapping themselves and getting extra combats. So we'll have to see how bad it gets for us. And that's the power of FOMO right there. And I'll go ahead and link a Lurrus deck if you're interested in seeing me do a Lurrus. Oh, and the opponent has a Thoughtseize and a Necrogoyf. And then we finally draw the land. Oh man. So it was just an unfortunate one. This was a very winnable game, but as you can see, this is how games can be lost. So we just move on to the next game. Also against a Lurrus deck, also with Chalice in hand. However, we're going first this time, and we can turn 1 the Chalice. So definitely going to stick the Izzet Charm underneath. It's just not as potent as a Supreme Verdict, which we know, is now going to be protected from 1-mana discards with our Chalice for 1 on turn 1. So let's see what the opponent can do about that. And we've hopefully blanked a substantial part of their deck with that Chalice. So now it's just camp on our Chalice until we find like a Niv-Mizzet or a Bring to Light. And we'll have to see basically how many 2-mana spells the opponent's running. Alright, so they grab a Shock land. They have the awesome Art land too. And they're going to pass to us. This is probably like an Orcish Bowmasters right here. But once again, like Bowmasters just sucks against our deck, so that's one of its strengths. The colors are always sort of tricky, so I'm trying, you're trying to set up domain, you're trying to set up casting 5 colors of stuff. Phlage escapes, Supreme Verdicts, like it is really tough. In fact, I've even thought about moving this deck up to a Yorion companion just to try and get the right configuration of Triomes and Shocks and Fetches. It would lower like turn 1 Chalices and Chrome Moxes and stuff. So, and the opponent is going to Bowmaster us. So there is that. So anyway, I haven't tried it yet. And with the Yorion companion, that might change the type of 2-color spells you want to include if you want to like play to the board more. So Let me know if you're interested in seeing that kind of take on this deck. Alright, Roiling Vortex. I appreciate the opponent fighting the good fight against show and tell decks. So we could end step Abrupt Decay their Roiling Vortex, because we are sort of falling low on life. Like, we have very painful mana base, tons of shocks and fetches. But that would require an untapped land there, so we're just going to eat the 1 damage. Not to mention, like, Roiling Vortex can shut off our Phlage life gain, which isn't great. Trying to figure out what land to play. I think just, you know, what little deck thinning the fetches provide, I think is worth it. We don't have any surveils. That's another thing you can get in the deck with the Yoran Companion, is some surveils, but it just seems like it's too urgent to get the right colors when you need to, and I couldn't find a way to squeeze in a surveil land, though just one of them would probably go a long way. Maybe just one of the shocks could be traded out for a surveil land, so holding up Abrupt Decay, 1, because their Vortex dings them, and 2, like, just waiting to see if the opponent does anything more powerful. So as we're waiting for the opponent to decide what to do, looks like Loris goes to hand. Let me know in the comments, like, what are your, you know, with all these 2-color cards in our deck, what's your favorite 2-color guild in Magic? Like, what's your favorite color pair? Is it Orzhov, Rakdos, Azorius? Let me know. Alright, so the opponent's going to activate the Vortex to deny us some life gain, but we're just going to, we don't care about the life gain this particular turn. Gonna get a Stomping Ground into play and take care of that Vortex. And there is a Niv-Mizzet Reborn. Exactly what we needed, and it's unlikely the opponent has an answer to this. Alright, so we only get 3 cards, but it's still pretty strong. And Waterlogged Teachings can turn into like one of our couple instants to really cover us, but Oko's gonna go a long way in this battle. So the opponent, so I block the token here because I'm expecting the opponent's gonna like drop Luris, replay Bowmasters if we blocked. So that's what I was thinking was gonna happen there. And that's assuming they had a land drop. And the opponent didn't have a land drop, otherwise they surely would have replayed the Vortex. So just thinking through the options here, and like, it's extremely bad for the opponent. I'm going to crash in just to try and hurry up and end the game. Going to slam Oko and Elk the Lurish just to stop them from like getting any more value. And we can still slam a Territorial Kavu for good measure afterwards. So the opponent does appear to have 1 mana spells, like they're getting priority passes, but obviously we've sheltered ourselves from that. So we're gonna Elk the Luris. And the opponent is, you know, either trying to fill up their graveyard for like Delirium or just showing us the Lightning Bolt right there. So, and yeah, the opponent's gonna pack in. They're thoroughly taken care of. So we move on to the next game. And this is a pretty good hand, though we don't have any fetches to like set up our colors. So currently Molten Collapse is not castable. Alright, so turn 1 Grief from the opponent. Let's see what happens. Alright. And I'm hoping that we're not getting scammed, because that's going to make the hand look way worse. And the opponent actually takes Molten Collapse, which is the 1 card we can't cast currently. So, but to be fair, I think with Grief, like, the lands are grayed out and just the non-lands are shown. So they might have just assumed we had a fetch to like enable that, you know. So, but we happened to just rip the right land. No, I think that was actually a misplay by me. I should have played the green-black land tapped, because I could have gone turn 2 Island and had both Drown the Loch and Assassin's Trophy up. As it stands, we can't have them both up on turn 2. So small misplay, but I did want to get like the tap lands out of the way. There's a Stomping Ground. So I decide probably just gonna hold up. So the opponent surveilled away a Shieldred, which is a sign that they're like mana screwed. So we definitely want to be like judicious with our Assassin's Trophy and not like help get them out of their mana situation. Let's see if they have another Surveil. Nope, another Bowmasters, which we do not care about. So easily going to let that resolve and just keep holding up Drown the Loch as the opponent fills up their graveyard a little bit. So, alright, and it's clear we're facing some sort of scam deck right here. I'll go ahead and link a scam deck of my own. I actually really love the scam archetype. I just haven't revisited it in a while, so I'm hoping to put a new scam video out soon. Decide just to play Phlage, takes out the Bowmasters, and gets us on our way towards escaping it, though we do have an island in play which is not helping us with that escape cost. So I'm going to just target the Bowmasters and just pass the turn, and it just bolsters our life total, takes some of the heat off us, and to see if the opponent found a land or not. No, but they found a dark ritual. So alright, so the opponent's going to turbo out a Sheoldred, crash in with the Orc army. Now, thankfully, Sheoldred, when it's in play, sets a stop for us, and I'm trying to decide how worth it is to drown the Loch. And once again, checking if they have enough cards in the grave, and they have exactly 4 cards. So I'm going to drown the Loch before Sheoldred can ding us with off our draw step. And we could have Assassin's Trophy up if we shocked in the Overgrown Tomb, but it just doesn't seem necessary. Like, the opponent doesn't have enough mana at the moment, and I'm checking the color of lands also to make, just see how we're doing with Phlage, though we're still quite a ways off, honestly, from escaping Phlage. Alright, so opponent did pitch cast a Grief, and so they're going to be able to take Molten Collapse, Niv, or Assassin's Trophy. And obviously they're going to leave Assassin's Trophy because they'd like us to give them a land by nuking one of their things. So, alright, but the opponent did find another Dark Ritual, so that they have another Sheoldred, which is sort of bad news. No, so this, I think I got too fancy. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do the whole nuke Sheoldred before it hits us. That's a misplay in 2 different ways. 1, it gets them a land for no reason. 2, we could have just slammed Niv-Mizzet and like drawn a ton of cards and like just killed them, and who cares about Sheoldred? So that was a misplay. We're still thoroughly ahead in this game, but that was a unforced error right there. Alright, opponent didn't have anything else. Is tempting to lay down a Chalice right here, but it seems, just slam Niv-Mizzet, see what we draw. See how many things we spike. Alright, so we did spike some color duplicates and yeah, the opponent's just gonna pack it in, so it was looking pretty bad for them. Alright, this is gonna be another turn 1 Chalice, which you always love to see. The question is what to pitch into the Chalice. Sorry, into the Chrome Mox. And if there was a Lurrus Companion, I would know it's pretty important to keep grind in hand to like kill some small creatures, but considering it's a Chalice on one, maybe I should just stuck grind to dust under the Mox and just tried to hope. We already have like a strong 5 mana play with Niv-Mizzet, so felt pretty decent about sticking the Bring to Light under there. Though maybe it's better to stick Niv-Mizzet under it, because Bring to Light can just get Niv-Mizzet and then the Mox taps for every color. So yeah, maybe that was a mistake right there. Alright, opponent's going to test the waters in our Chalice with the Dark Ritual, but they are going to be denied. We will not allow that. And Territorial Kavu is a pretty amazing draw. So we've shut down their opponent's Fatal Pushes, and this is me anyway, forgetting that the Chrome Mox has the right colors to cast Territorial Kavu, so I'm going to shock this in for no reason. And I realize it right here, I'm like, oh, that was stupid. Could have grabbed a Triome and had better mana and not taken unnecessary damage. So that was just carelessness right there. So, opponent plays Raven Man, so already have my attention right there. So I'm like, alright, is this some sort of discard deck? So, now the thing is, Territorial Kavu is going to feed into the Raven Man if we choose this mode, but it just seems like we want to try and find something useful. And we actually don't have a black source for Grind to Dust. That's why I pitched it away right there, trying to find something. And the mana is just working out awkward. And so you could see if we had tucked Niv-Mizzet, our mana situation would be like way better right now. Well, and if I fetched a Triome, we would just be fine. So that it's sort of those two decisions compounding. And then it becomes clear what's going on. So the opponent plays a Nazgul, crashes in with their creatures, and so we're taking a ton of damage. And happy to see someone experimenting with Nazgul in Timeless. And you may or may not be surprised, I've actually made a video of playing Nazgul and Timeless, which I'll link right now. And I might need to revisit it now that we have Chrome Mox. I think that actually is like really strong for that strategy. Even though it is an uphill battle because you're playing like these 3 mana creatures that... Anyway, Nazgul are awesome, and I'm excited to see the opponent trying them out. So, gonna tuck Niv-Mizzet under Chrome Mox, learn my lesson, just trying to get the mana working. Phlage down the Raven Man, though we are unfortunately pretty far from escaping Phlage because one of our Chrome Moxes and one of our lands don't cast it. Alright, so here's another Nazgul. They're gonna make the bird the ring bearer. And they are on level 2 of the ring, so it's going to allow them to loot upon attack. And yeah, they're pitching the dead dark ritual there. And we're just drawing some like super awkward stuff. So like we have, you know, we have like an assassin's trophy, but honestly, yeah, it's not the best answer. The opponent puts a 1 ring on the stack. And that feels like a way we could easily lose this game, is the opponent like out-carding our answers. So going to drown the Loch the 1 ring, which good for us, they have enough cards so that drown is active. But we are going to eat some damage here, and the opponent is going to be able to like get around Chalice by pitching their 1-drops. And we see another dark ritual hit the bin. So, and once again, still the mana is incredibly awkward, and so you could see that turn where I shocked in the breeding pool like an idiot. So the opponent's going to attempt a surgical Phlage, but Chalice says no, no, no once again. But anyway, if we had that Triome, would have been way better mana situation. The opponent has a Rotting Regisaur as like a huge chunky creature. I've thought about trying to make like a chunky creature Coco deck, you know, with like just crazy statted creatures that you just try and Coco into play, such as Rotting Regisaur. So that seems a little too dangerous for this situation, so going to Assassin's Trophy it. And then finally we draw a land. And we do have enough for Niv-Mizzet. So going to see what we hit, but we are in sort of a dangerous spot right here. But 5 cards is, will not complain about that. So we have a ton of stuff to work with now. Now this actually, at first I thought the opponent missed lethal, but they're actually just shy of it. If they had made their attacking Nazgul the ring bearer, level 1 of the ring gives the creature Skulk, and so the ring, so the Nazgul could have gone in unblocked, but we could have blocked the bird if it wasn't the ring bearer anymore. So we would have went to 1. However, we have Supreme Verdict, so we are completely safe. The opponent's empty-handed. We Supreme Verdict, and like we could, like, anyway, I'm just gonna play it safe with our low life total, but pretty soon we can slam Minsc and just really get this thing over with. Hoping the opponent doesn't. Well, yes, we have Bump in the Night covered, so we're feeling pretty safe. We're hoping it's not like a Zoff consumption or something like that. So we are doing all right. We're gonna slam Minsc and It ends the game pretty dang fast with the speedy hamster, which we can eventually fling at them. So going to make the hamster, dump the counters on it, crash in with the hamster, and hold up Abrupt Decay. It doesn't seem like there's much that can stop us at this point. So we have to see if the opponent musters up anything. Alright, they have another Nazgul. They're fighting the good fight with all the Death Touchers. And they have hit level 4 of the ring. That's another way we could have maybe died, is if they got to level 4 of the ring and we ate a hit from a ring bearer. But we have the Abrupt Decay and should be able to muster enough damage at this point. So yeah, so we amp up the hamster, and now if we escape Phlage, the opponent is going to die. So we finally got enough mana to escape Phlage and end this battle against the Lord of the Rings deck. So, well, that was incredibly fun, and this deck was like pretty dang strong also. Like, it has a lot of play to it, and it can get itself out of a lot of tricky situations. So really excited about it. And one thing, so these like 2-color MDFCs would be like super strong. The problem is like most of them just didn't really seem to fit like our strategy. They're like punch spells or power doubling spells, like just not stuff that's super useful in like a control oriented deck. So not to mention like we need like a critical mass of like fetches and shocks to even get the colors to work. So would love to get more of these in here, but not sure, one, like which ones should be included, if any, and two, like how to even include more of these sort of MDFCs. The biggest argument against running Chalice of the Void is that so you can run Deathrite Shaman, which would be like it's incredible with like so many fetches and like helping you cast your stuff and turbo it out. And so that is like a pretty strong argument. There might be a way to configure it and run them anyway, but anyway, that's like the most notable exclusion is Deathrite Shaman. And you can see some of my other candidate cards right here. Like Pest Control could be pretty strong against energy, but it blows up Chalices and Chrome Moxes, so it doesn't seem like quite the right one. But the fun thing about this deck is like it's like infinitely customizable. Like once you have your Nivs and your Bring Delights, you can use whatever two color cards are your favorite and just slam them in there. In early iterations of this deck, I was trying to like run Fury as like a way to like make up tempo and like leyline binding, but like just including these single color cards in there like just made the Niv-Mizzets way worse, and like it just wasn't quite working out. Chrome Mox basically solved all those problems, and it would be so nice to have some Cavern of Souls in there just to force Niv-Mizzets through counter magic and just bury the opponents with card advantage. But you could see our mana situation was tough as it is already, and like this would just be a colorless land for every other spell. So once again, this might be something for like a Yorion build. And there's some different kinds of spells. Like you can try and get some Psychic Frogs in there, or Golgari Charms, Decisive Denial. There's a lot of good blue-green stuff, but you're already running 4 Bring Delights, and so I only ended up with like 1 more Oko, but like there are other like counter spells and stuff you can do. So, but anyway, this is just an amazing strategy. I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.